Welcome to the Wellness Help Desk with your host, Nike Lamodi, certified wellness coach and personal trainer. A wellness podcast focused on providing practical tips on how to curate a healthy lifestyle uniquely for you, where we discuss wellness hot topics with expert guests and have real candid conversations. It's the one-stop shop you need to get the help you've been looking for. Let's dive in. Hey, what's up, and welcome to the Wellness Help Desk. I'm your host, Nike Lamodi, and this is episode 45. So today we're going to have a guest on the podcast. I'm so excited for you to hear from her, and it's so timely because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and you're going to be hearing from Victoria Cortez, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist and also the creator of First Gen Feeler. Now, First Gen Feeler is an empowering online space that's committed to shattering unhealthy generational patterns and affirming shared experiences. With the focus on boundary setting, inner child healing, and fostering self-trust, Victoria is passionate about helping others on their journeys of growth. I can't name a more appropriate person to be on the Wellness Help Desk to talk to first gen eldest daughters about these particular areas on their own journeys of growth. Before we jump into the interview, I want to share about one-on-one coaching with me where I help first generation eldest daughters create healthy relationships with their parents and their siblings so that they can reclaim back time and money to reinvest back into themselves. And if you're so ready to establish a healthy dynamic with your parents and siblings that allows for you to feel empowered on how much access they have to you so that you can start investing more of your time and more of your money into the things that bring you joy, whether that's your dating relationship, a past hobby, maybe you want to go back to school, or you just want to start saving for a future down payment on a home, I would love to talk to you and help you accomplish that. Just click the link in the show notes to schedule a sales call with me, and I will show you exactly what we can do uniquely for you to achieve that in the next 4 months. Okay, let's jump into today's interview with Victoria. I'm absolutely so excited and very honored for today's guest here on the Wellness Help Desk. And before we even jump into what we're going to be talking about today, I first want to give her the opportunity to just introduce herself to you all and tell you all who she is and what she does.
Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. I'm Victoria. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm also the founder of First Gen Feeler, an online space created for really validating the experience of being a cycle breaker and delving into the emotions and mental health side of just maybe someplace where your family hasn't been before. But you can find me on Instagram. That's where I've been lately, posting some hopefully relatable mental health content and some tips and tricks if you are just thinking about getting on your journey or if you're ready on your mental health journey.
Yes, and I will say that when I first discovered her page, I immediately felt seen by the name First Gen Fueler. And then as I dived into more of her page, I was like, wow, like somebody gets it. So it's just so like validating to feel seen on your page. So I love what you're doing and the work you do. And so I really want to hear more about just your journey to discovering just the benefits of being a feeler. Like I love how you said a cycle breaker and just being where maybe your family has not been before. What does that look like for your own journey towards arriving to that?
So it's been a journey, right? Because
Yeah.
I think at the root of being a first gen feeler, it's, you know, and I have a definition for it too. Because when I made it, I made up that term, so I'm very proud of that.
Mm.
Because this was a conversation I kept having with a lot of people, and it was, oh yeah, I'm the first in my family to do this. I'm the first in my family to do this. Oh, this is really uncomfortable stuff, isn't it? And eventually I was like, oh, we all have this common thread in common. And so the definition that I made up for it is one who is part of the first generation in their family to actively pursue their own healing, feel their emotions, and or break unhealthy patterns that have been passed down for generations.
Mm.
And so I have been a therapist for over 7 years now. And I've been lucky enough to meet amazing people in my career who have also had similar experiences and in the, I guess, the thread of shame and guilt
Mm-hmm.
that that is just across many experiences. And so that's also what inspired me to do this. And I said, I don't think me and my friends are the only ones going through this. And then it just
Yeah.
started coming up a lot. And I started to just really find the joy in this work of helping people find their boundaries and find themselves, and being a guide in that. So for myself, if you meet any therapist, they've also done the work in their inner journey. So over the years, grad school gets you and it teaches you a lot. I think emotionally, when you're going through the motions of it. So not necessarily what you learn in the classroom, but what you learn in through your internship and
Mm.
through those experiences and being mentored, right? So in going through my own journey, recognizing, oh, you know, there are so many things that I love about my culture and so many things I want to keep, but also I recognize the things that I don't want to pass on to my kids
Yeah.
whenever I have them, right? If that's what I choose to do, right? And so it was really the inspiration personally for me was, I think, when I decided one day I would be open to being a mother. I think that would be really cool. And, but I know I have to do some inner work before I get there, because
Mm.
I also don't want to come up to this very, it can be a very joyous time, but also in my work, I've also seen it can be a very triggering time, as with any
Mm.
chapter, right?
That's
So
true.
feeling your feelings and learning how you navigate things, that's where I found my inspiration. And just continuously, I think, I make the conscious decision of, I want to be a positive ripple effect in my community, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we don't know the impact that we have in other people's lives, right? And so I said, well, let me do this. This is a love letter to my inner child, first
Mm.
gen feeler as a whole, and also, honestly, a love letter to the younger cousins in my family, to say, you know
Yeah.
what, if you don't feel comfortable talking about this or you're not there yet, here's some videos.
I love that so much. Like you've said a lot, but first of all, I love your definition of first gen fueler. But also just like I love how a deeper connectedness to your why, like future orientedly, is like what started as a catalyst for you of like, you know what, here are things that I appreciate about who I am, my identity and my culture, but here are things that I want to evolve and heal and change. And I resonate with that as well. Especially I'm Nigerian American. And so there's, things of a Nigerian culture that I love and appreciate. Just like there's things with my mom's side of the family, more African American culture that I love and appreciate. But in both, there's things I don't want to pass down to my kids if I'm ever, given the opportunity to have them. So I love how that was like kind of a catalyst for you in igniting this passion. And at the same time, like you said, impacting your community, but like your family, like your other cousins. And that hit deep for me because a lot of my cousins on my mother's side of the family, and I don't even get to see a lot of my cousins on my dad's side of the family. They only are going off of previous matriarch and patriarch examples. And so some of the things that I've changed and transitioned, they're like watching what I'm doing without me even really realizing it. And so when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, like this is a generational and community impact through deciding to make this choice. And so I appreciate you sharing that. It makes me think about how a lot of my clients are daughters of immigrants and they're seeking their own unique path as they navigate mental health. And like you said, breaking those cycles and patterns where their family just hasn't been before. And for
Mhm.
them, they've expressed how it's felt isolating and has even induced some shame with their parents not understanding. Why are you in therapy? Why do you want to talk about these things in this way? Why are you bringing up how you were raised or what we did? You should be grateful. Like we
Mhm.
provided for you. We gave you a good life. And so, what would you recommend to those who are in that position and facing that kind of outside criticism and judgment as they're trying to seek out being a first gen feeler, like and actively live that out? What would you recommend or like say to them?
And say, first, take a breath, because the longest relationship you'll have is with yourself. So,
Mm,
finding that safety within yourself to be authentically you and also make decisions that you're aligned with. right? When we grow up in a culture where it's very much just, it's a group mentality, but that's also been taught for survival. And
Yeah.
again, it's beautiful what we
Mhm.
can accomplish as a group, what we can accomplish as just everything, right? We see these
Mhm.
traditions and they're fantastic. And in order to also keep them, the things that we like, we want to set ourselves up for success as well and recognize, okay, I have needs and I have energy that I want to also keep for myself so that I can continue the things that I like, right? Because
Mhm.
it's just like with anything, if we don't recognize our boundaries, then we might we might end up becoming resentful of the
Mm.
things that we once loved, right? I absolutely love participating in these family parties and this and that. But you know what? I'm really tired because it all falls on me because I
Yeah.
am one of the girls. And culturally, the girls are the ones planning it, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm recognizing, okay, I want more equality. And maybe that's the relationship that I seek out, right? When
Mm.
I met my husband, I was like, okay, what kind of relationship are we going to have? Right. And recognizing what's important for me. Right. If I were to go based off of maybe the qualities or the stereotypes of what a marriage looks like, right, I might feel not happy in my
Mm.
partnership and say, oh, well, we went right into a very like machista sort of relationship where the man is in charge and the woman does, the household things and all of that.
Mhm.
So I'm seeing, okay, this part, maybe I'm going to move things so that it works for me. And I still get to keep the communal like gatherings and this and that. And how does it look different when I put my boundaries into it? When I put
Mm.
even my own needs and likes into it.
I love that. It's fine. Honestly, it's like what I'm hearing you say is finding your voice and like being
Mm-hmm.
okay with trusting where that takes you
Yeah.
and not feeling boxed in. Because I feel like a lot of times too, it's boxed in out of obligation and honor, which is huge in a lot of cultures, especially
Oh
Nigerian
yeah.
culture. And so there could be that guilt of like, oh, but if I'm deciding here is what is important to me, what I want my marriage to look like, or how I want my work-life balance, or whatever. It's like, am I honoring what my parents and my aunts are saying or doing or have done for me? So I love what you're saying is finding that sense of safety and your voice and what is important to you. And even what you're saying too is it inadvertently like it adds to those relationships instead of taking away where that resentment can kind of get in and like alter the dynamic a little bit in your relationships.
Yeah. I like to say that, people often mistake the two words for each other, which is boundaries and barriers. And they think,
Mm.
oh, if I'm setting boundaries, that means I'm keeping people out, right? I'm setting my boundaries. That's not what boundaries are. Boundaries are a way to keep people in so that we can continue to cultivate a relationship in a way that I feel safe. So I want to keep you in my life. So I'm letting you know, hey, I'm only comfortable with this. And that doesn't mean that they can't change.
Mm-hmm.
Boundaries are not rigid, they can change over time. And
Yeah.
sort of like when you start dating someone, right? Probably at the beginning, you're like, whoa, 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 right? First date. Do not be all up on me, right?
Yeah.
I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
But as time progresses, right, you might
Mm-hmm.
be like, oh, I'm okay with holding hands. I'm okay with kissing. I'm okay with this. And so it's
Mm.
recognizing they can change over time. And likewise, the opposite, where maybe you've been really close with someone and suddenly you're like, you know what, I'm actually not feeling okay with physical touch right now. And
Mm.
I need to create some space because I want to keep you in my life. So I'm going to let you know what I'm okay with and what I'm not okay with. And the hope
Mm.
is that the person on the other side receives it with you in mind, your comfort and your safety in mind. Because we would see probably in dating, it might be a red flag, right? If you
Yeah.
tell somebody, hey, I'm not comfortable with that yet, and they're like, no, well, you need to do it, right? But
Mm-hmm.
how often does that happen where we choose someone else's comfort over our own in familial situations? Where it's like, I'm
Yeah.
not really comfortable with this. I don't really want to hug this person, but I'm doing it.
That's
Right. And
true.
it's what we're taught to not be rude, right? Not present a certain way. What are they going to think if I don't go around hugging everyone? But this person just I never felt comfortable with them. How do I learn how to honor myself?
Mm. I love when you said that the other person like should receive it, or we would hope that they would receive us expressing whatever that boundary is in a
Mm-hmm.
supportive way. Um, but what if the person is being met with more of non-support from their family? It really makes me think about when I was seeking out therapy for going through a triggering and very traumatic event as a young child, but I didn't tell my dad about it, and
Mm-hmm.
but my sister knew why I was going, and so one day he was asking, I don't know why Nikkei gets home at this time or whatever. And she was like, oh, she's going to therapy. And he was like, why is she going there? What's wrong with her?
Mm-hmm.
And my sister was like, oh, well, there's some things that happened to her when she was younger, and she just wants to get support navigating that and figuring it out. And he was like, what happened? Is she going crazy? Like, what's wrong with her? And I remember
Mm-hmm.
my sister expressing that to me, and I felt like I just froze. Like, I'm like, I don't want to walk in the house. Like, what if he's going to tell me to not go anymore? Like, what if, does he think I'm losing my mind? And so it kind of almost made me averse to even wanting to go back to therapy, wanting to even face what I was feeling and all of those things. So, what is helpful for someone that is maybe already living in the home with their parents
Mm-hmm.
and they aren't receiving that support or encouragement, or they're being super critical of seeking out therapy so that they can start breaking some of these cycles?
Mm-hmm. And that's really tough, right? When you're in it. And it's something that your family isn't familiar with.
Mm,
I think there's also the realization that I'm not going to change my parents' mind, right? We have to have
mm,
that acceptance because sometimes we're waiting for that. We're
yep.
waiting for, when my dad says that it's okay to go to therapy, then it'll be fine. But the thing is, that's your dad's life. Your dad has made his decisions.
That
And
is
so
so
you
true.
get to make these decisions for you. And so find your community, right? And
Mm,
there might be some people who really also have these same goals in mind. You might have a cousin, right? An older cousin who moved out. You might have a friend. You might have, work friends, and
hmm
find your community. Maybe you have a hobby that you really enjoy. It doesn't have to always be therapy. I say this as a
mm.
therapist, right?
Yeah,
And that's
that's
okay
good.
because sometimes that's not the step we're ready to take. Sometimes it's
Mm,
a really big step. Find your community, find where you feel safe.
mm,
Start there. Make time for you because I would just invite you to be curious about yourself in this journey. And also knowing, okay, what happens when I have that acceptance, which is also helpful to go to therapy to work on that acceptance. But what happens when I have that acceptance that I can't change my family?
Yeah.
I don't have control over them. I don't have control over their actions. I have control over my actions
Mm,
and how I decide to live my life. And yes, there's the shame and the guilt, right? But what is going to weigh more in your life, right? Is it going to
hmm
be, I'm going to continue to live my life for my family and how they perceive things, or I really want to be in a stable mental and emotional place, right? But I would say
hmm
find your community, find where you have a voice, right? So if you find
hmm
in your dance community, you're just like, I get to express myself here. Or if you're into art, I write music, I do this, right? If the gym is your thing, whatever it is, find a place
mm,
where you can connect with yourself. So connect with yourself first and be curious from there. It's not going to be easy.
yeah.
It's not because, if it were easy, everybody would do it, right?
Mhm.
But also we can only do differently when we learn differently.
Yeah.
And we can only work with the tools that we've been given. And our parents, I always say it's not a shame game because our parents also did what they could with what they had. And for a lot of
Mm,
our parents, I too am the daughter of immigrants, right? My parents were in survival mode. They were coming to a new country. They didn't have time for, let me check my emotional wellness. So let me check, let me look up therapists, right?
it's
Because
true.
you're not, and then that's so many layers to being also a woman of color, right?
Yeah. Hmm
There's a distrust there of, oh, well, if I go and tell somebody everything, then am I at risk for deportation? Am I at risk
Mm,
for being judged or being stereotyped? So there's so much shame there, right?
hmm
And so there's reason. And this is right. The quote that I'm thinking of, this is your parents' first time living too. So
mm,
they're also figuring out their story
Mm.
and you happen to be figuring out your story. Everybody, if you, I did a podcast, I did one season of a podcast and it revolved around the idea of we're all just given yarn balls that are
Mm.
wrapped up and knotted. And we're looking at each other saying, oh, how did you figure that knot out? Oh, okay, I'm going to try that over
Mm.
here. I figured it out this way, right? We want to belong and we also get to
Yeah.
help each other on this journey. You don't have to do it on your own. So
Mm.
find your community and find your why also. You know, for me, it was if down the road I decide that I want to, be a mom, then I want to be ready for that. But even
Yeah.
if life doesn't take me that way, I know that I have a ripple effect
Mm.
in my community, in rooms that that I haven't even seen or dreamt of. I know that I have an effect. And
Yeah.
so for that reason, that's my why. I I want to do this for that. And also I want to feel safe with myself.
Mm.
So find your why, find your community. And also we get to work on that acceptance of I can't change them and I only have so much energy. So I got to refocus that on me. And baby steps are okay. All right. We don't have to do the whole
Yes.
thing.
Yes. Emphasis on baby steps are okay. Because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, women, but especially daughters of immigrants, tend to be very high overachievers and want to get everything done right away or with this false sense of urgency. So I love that you said that. But in all the things that, like you mentioned, like feeling safe, being able to know your why, find community, and working through acceptance, what are benefits to working through these things or adopting some of these tools, or like you said, just starting with where your voice is heard, if that's in pottery class or painting or
Mm-hmm.
a dance class? What are benefits that start to come up for people when they tap into feeling their feelings? Like maybe shifts in their relationships, how they show up at work, or how they show up even in their health in support of themselves. What are just
Mm-hmm.
benefits that sometimes people can expect from just feeling their feelings?
You don't feel as crazy. There's that.
Mm, that's
I'm full of
good.
fun phrases. That's my warning. I'm full of fun phrases. If you've ever seen my Instagram, I have a lot of catchphrases and fun phrases and metaphors, and that's just sort of where I live.
Yeah.
But we want to name it to tame it. I want to name my
Mm.
emotion so that I'm not feeling like there's something wrong with me,
Ooh,
right? I'm
that's good.
feeling some type of way because somebody used a tone with me and I'm freaking out, right? And maybe that connects back to the same tone or a similar tone that my parents would use when they reprimanded me way back here, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so feeling my feelings, noticing them, being aware of them, I get to maybe recognize, oh, it's connected to this. Am I actually in that place right now? No, but my body feels like that.
Mm.
And so we get to learn tools, right, in therapy of how do I connect with myself? How do I um, self regulate?
Mm.
And other benefits would be when I learn how to self regulate, I'm not burning as much energy because I've been avoiding this person. I've been avoiding
Mm.
uncovering these rocks of emotion because I don't know how to deal with them, right?
Mm.
It's sort of like when you avoid a task for 6 months that will only take you 5 minutes.
Yep. Yep. Like my
when you,
taxes.
yep. And so, I think of that because it won't be, necessarily that quick of like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I might suddenly have an avenue to self regulate. Whereas
Mm.
before, I wouldn't have anything. So I'd have to work double to get through a task,
Mm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
feeling my feelings, I don't have to, I don't have a road closure, right?
Yeah.
That's also how I
That's
imagine
good.
it, where I have to go around and through all these side streets. No, I'll have a way to get to my feelings and figure out, okay, if I'm taking that way, what do I need to do to get there?
Mm.
Right. And what
Mm-hmm.
is a safer way for me to get there? And that's what it all comes down to also. It's safety within myself and also for other people. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
feeling your feelings is also learning ways to navigate them in a way that is, again, safe. Because if I grew up and anger wasn't shown in a safe way, I might avoid that. Because
Mm,
when I think of anger, I think of my uncle and he, would just explode everywhere. Why would I want to be angry? That makes me
mm,
a not nice person. I don't want to be that person. But when we allow ourselves to explore that there might be a different way, right? We don't have to have that road closure because at the end of the day, emotions are notifications, right? It's not something that has to engulf your whole being. It can
mm,
be as easy as a notification on your phone, right? You get a text message, you read it, maybe you reply, you internalize it, right? And then you get to swipe it away. And then you know what? More notifications will come. Happiness, anger, anxiety, and the different things that come with that. All of the emotions, they visit us. And it doesn't have to be that one is better than the other because you know what? Grief, while it is hard,
yeah.
it is also beautiful in that, oh, what things can I take away from this grief as well? It's, oh, there was so much love there. And
Mm,
I'm so happy I have that ability, that capability to experience love. Right. And with
hmm.
happiness, it's not it's not a destination, but it's a lovely place we get to visit.
Ooh, that's
And so
good, Victoria.
what happens when I allow myself to treat my emotions like visitors and I welcome them and I'm like, oh, anger, you're here. What are you telling me about myself? Right. And it goes back to that idea of how can I be curious with myself in this emotion in this moment?
Oh, you said so many good things, especially the one about happiness not being a destination. But for those who maybe aren't familiar, can you just describe or define what you mean when you say self-regulate?
So self-regulation is I guess the simplest way to put it is when we calm down, right? In my experience, telling someone to calm down is not helpful. Let's not go that route.
That is accurate.
Self-regulation is also maybe helpful when I self-regulate, I get to help myself calm down in a safe way, right? So if I'm
Mhm,
noticing I'm starting to feel anxious or I'm starting to feel angry, I'm starting to feel something boil within me, right?
mhm, mhm.
And we can use that example of the boiling pot. The pot is starting to boil and it's going to bubble over unless I take off the lid or I
Mm,
let some steam out, right? So
mm,
how do I let that steam out? So maybe that's breathing. I'm going to do my breathing exercise. I'm going to go for a walk because right now all of my emotions are heightened. They're up here. I want to self regulate. I want to get back down to my baseline. I want to get back to me feeling like, okay, I can actually receive information
yeah.
because I think we've all been there when we are really activated. I'm not receiving information. I'm just trying to live into the next moment. Right.
Mm,
And that
mhm,
might be my nervous system taking charge. And a lot of us don't want our nervous system taking charge because that's very fight or flight. Right.
mm.
And we could go into that. That's a whole nother, that's a whole nother
Yeah, no,
podcast.
yeah. I love how you explain that because I feel like and this is why I love spaces like this where those with certain expertise can come and share because these phrases are kind of bounced around all over the internet. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
people they don't know what's meant by nervous system regulation or all of these things. And so the way that you provided, clarity on that was just so good. And I love the visual of the boiling pot and letting off some steam. That was like chef's kiss. I'm a visual person, so I love that. Um, and so I also love how you mentioned feelings or notifications. And when you use the imagery of like a phone, you look at it, you decide to swipe it or tap into it, it made me feel like, oh, like I can be empowered by my emotions and with them. I don't have to feel like they're here to run my life and they're here
Mm-hmm.
to kind of like me be submissive to them, but instead I can be empowered in how I navigate my emotions. So I love that you shared that. That made me feel empowered about emotions that come up. Because some emotions I have, I feel like, confident in navigating and working through. And there's just some emotions in certain circumstances that take me back to that little girl, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, in a certain circumstance, and it evokes so much shame or criticalness, and I don't feel empowered. So you sharing that was really helpful for me. So I know someone else was gonna be, really encouraged by it. Um, but I would love to hear if you have like a tool that you love or a tool that maybe you share a lot with clients that they enjoy using that just really helps supporting feeling your feelings. And especially if you are a beginner, or maybe if you're just, like me, just constantly on this life journey and constantly want to refine your skill of feeling your feelings.
Well, I would say, because I know that you had sent me a little outline of like, okay, like what would be something if somebody wanted to start today, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Of going towards that. And I really did think it through. I was like, well, there's this, but then there's like more pieces to that, right?
Mm,
So I would say start off with 1 minute,
mm,
1 minute a day where you do something to connect with yourself. So this is 60 seconds of your day. And I dare say if 60 seconds feels like too much, start with 30. Maybe for some, they're like, Victoria, 1 minute, 30 seconds. Like, what am I going to do? A heck of a lot more than you're doing right now. And recognizing where you're at and checking in.
mm,
You want to see where you're at. You want to start to be curious with yourself. The thing is, when we avoid looking, right? When we navigate blindly, like, I don't know what's under there, but I'm going to go through life. Like, we wouldn't, here's all of my metaphors. You would not get into your car and see that you have 5 miles left and expect to be able to drive to the next town over,
that's true.
right? So even just taking 30 seconds, taking 1 minute to check in with yourself. How am I feeling? Where in, if we want to make it even more simple than that, where's my energy level at? What's my tank at? Do I have like 100% energy? What am I going to do with it? Or do I have 50% of energy? And if I do, how am I adjusting my day
Mm,
to to help me maybe fill up, or to recognize I only have 50% of energy. I can't be expecting 100% for myself, because I
mhm,
know rationally I would not drive my car on fumes
mm,
because it's going to break
mhm.
down. But the same thing works with us. I'm going to break down and it's not going to be pretty. I'm going to break down on the highway, right? So I would want somebody to start off with that. What does it look like to check in with yourself? Is it breathing? Is it, and Google can also be a wonderful thing, right?
Mm,
And I also plug here therapy.
yeah.
Therapy can be a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
But if you're just starting, connect with yourself. How do you connect with yourself? And so, and believe me, 30 seconds is hard. It is. And I'm going to validate the heck out of that because it's not a
Hmm.
practice. I'm not going to expect you to, you need to, do this breathing exercise, do these stretches, do this. That's overwhelming.
Yeah.
I don't know
Mhm.
how to do that. I've never seen my parents do that. That
Mhm.
sounds that sounds strange, Victoria. Yeah, I agree with you. It does sound strange. So let's start off really, really small. Let's set ourselves up for success. What does it feel like just to notice me?
Ooh, that's good to notice me. You have said like so many great quotable things for t-shirts. And
I do have sweatshirts in my shop. Sometimes a saddie, always a baddie.
she has one of her sweatshirts on right now, y'all. It's so cute. Definitely check out her shop. But I mean, you've just said so many things. I'm just like, oh, it's resonating with me. And so I know it's going to be resonating with other people listening. But I love just like the 30 seconds or a minute a day to check in with yourself. That is powerful and a powerful place to start. And one where, 3 years ago, I wish, someone would have told me, hey, just start with 1 minute a day when I was in the throes of caregiving for my mom, because I feel like that 1 minute would have made a difference for me to say, oh, let me notice me. So that's such a good practical. And I know that you offer therapy, but can you just tell the people like how they can, access finding out about your services, what states you provide your services, just so we can make sure we talk about your
Yeah,
therapy
of
practice.
course. I'm currently accepting clients and I am licensed in California. So if you are a Californian thinking to start your therapy journey, you can go to firstgenfeeler.com and fill out an interest form, and then I'll contact you and we can coordinate a time to meet for a video chat or a phone chat and see if we'd be a good fit. And I tell everyone, whether they stay with me or not, therapy, and this is the most awkward like way to describe it, but it's true. Therapy is like dating. That's what it is. Where
Mm,
you got to have a right vibe, right? Not
yeah.
every therapist is going to be a fit for every client and vice versa, right? And
Hmm.
so therapy is a very intimate space for the person coming in. And, if you come in and you're like, okay, the vibe is right, like I feel safe to continue, then there's some beautiful work that can happen there. But if you're going and
Mm,
you think, oh, I have to stick with this person because they are educated in this, I don't know,
yeah.
then that might not be a good fit for you, right? If you're not feeling comfortable. And so sometimes it is important to be like, okay, am I cool? Like, do I want to work with a woman? Do I want to work with a male? Do I want to work with somebody who identifies with a certain community? Do I want to work with someone who is this, right? And so you'd be surprised, you know, what who you feel comfortable with, right?
Hmm.
But just treating, so a consult is whenever you talk to someone, right? So a therapist or maybe a provider, and saying, okay, it's usually 15-20 minutes, and you just sort of get a feel for each other, and you get to ask all the questions that you have, right? Okay, so what's your fee?
Mm,
What would therapy look like? What does your treatment plan look like? Like, what would we do based on my goals, right? And so those are important conversations. You might have a conversation with somebody and you're like, oh, okay, well, I don't think I'm really feeling that. And you might then get to talk to someone else. But I really hope you do. Like, if you're feeling a vibe, like, give me submit the form, and maybe we can chat and see if you're a good fit. If you're someone in California looking to start your therapy journey.
and I love that you provided that because a lot of people don't know that they have the power to choose if something is a good fit or not. I know I've had past coaching clients who have done therapy while also doing coaching, and they felt like almost pressured or obligated to choose the first therapist that had a slot. And but they were
Mm-hmm.
like, but I don't, like you said, they're like, I just don't feel like it's a good fit. And I'm like, that's
Yeah,
okay. Like you can keep looking. So I'm so happy that you shared that to give people the permission, like, hey, go until you find the right fit. Just like on a dating app, you would say, hey,
yeah.
this is not for me. You can have the power to do that as well.
And as a first gen therapist, I feel like it is an obligation for me because
Mm,
it can be super scary, especially if you grew up in a household, like you were saying earlier, like, why would you go to therapy?
yeah.
Like, you want to feel comfortable. And sometimes it's intimidating. You're like, I'm stepping out of my comfort zone,
Hmm.
and I'm already uncomfortable as it is, right?
Yeah.
So you want to find a space where you feel safe and heard and seen.
Hmm.
And I tell everyone, give a good try, of course. And maybe, we're just feeling some type of way the first intake, right? But you want to feel comfortable. And that's
Yeah.
important for you to also know your own voice in that. You're allowed to say no, thank
Mm,
you, and I'm going to try someone else. And you're
mm.
also allowed to change your mind, because sometimes you're like, I really like you and I want to talk to this other person. And then if I decide I want to go forward, I will contact you, right? That's also an option.
That is very true. There are so many choices that we have the power to choose. Um, Thank you so much for like everything that you've shared. I even though I follow you and I consume your content, I still with what you shared today was like really resonating for me.
Thank
And
you.
so yes, I appreciate you sharing, especially just around primarily seeking safety and honoring our voices and being able to find our whys and connect with community and to be able to know that we can have the power to choose to be cycle breakers and break up patterns of behavior that aren't serving us and that we want to take to our future families or future generations, and that we can decide to change things up. And I appreciate you sharing that that possibility is possible right now, today, for people who maybe feel backed into a corner, especially if they're still living at home with their parents or some of their family. It can still be really hard to see a possibility of anything different. So, thank you so much for sharing. I will also make sure in the show notes to put Victoria's information, a link to her Instagram, as well as a link to the form that you can access to find out more about her services and apply if you are in California and interested. And Victoria, is there anything else that you wanted to share with everyone?
Well, right now, the first gen psychologist and I have a series going on called 1-800 Boundaries, where we are giving an example of the different types of boundaries
Mm,
by a fun skit every week of what a boundary looks like, a time boundary, an emotional boundary, a physical boundary. Because if you've never heard of boundaries before, you don't even know where to start. So I'd
yeah.
encourage people to check that out if you're brand new to boundaries or if you just want a nice reminder.
Ooh, so good, especially if you're like me and you're a visual person. And just seeing something acted out kind of gives me this, like, oh, that's how I could say that, which helps
It's
me feel a
really
little
nice
more confident.
to have a script, we've heard. So,
Yeah.
some of the examples you might think like, oh, well, that's, I guess, common sense. It's not common sense. If you've never seen this played out before,
Mm,
then having a script also makes us feel a little bit more confident whenever we're
hmm
doing this, right? So it's a foundation. And with everything, it's not a real therapy situation. It's very much fictional. So that's my disclaimer. But check it out. And I hope it helps whoever's on their boundaries journey too.
Oh, amazing. Yes, y'all definitely go and check that out. Thank you for sharing.
I just wanted to say thank you for having me. I enjoyed just chatting with you. And
Yeah.
I think just for everyone, you never know the difference that your healing journey will make, not only for you, but again, whether you decide to go down the stereotypical like family route, right? Or even
Mm-hmm.
just live life for yourself. You decide to choose
Mm,
to be a fur mommy, or you decide, I'm going to
hmm
be a nomad, whatever it is,
Yeah.
that you have value just being you. You
Mm,
don't need to want certain things outside of, I just want to connect with myself. I want to be good with me. I want to feel safe,
mm.
right? You're enough to do the work.
And like Victoria said earlier, the longest relationship you will have is the one with yourself. So it is worth it to pursue connecting with yourself. Thank you so much, Victoria. I appreciate you being
Thank you.
here. And I will catch you all in the next episode. That's it for today's episode. Thank you for listening in. If you enjoyed the episode today, head over and leave me a review. This helps others find the podcast and be one step closer to curating their healthy lifestyle. Come connect with me over on Instagram at Nike_Lamodi. And if social isn't your thing, join my beautiful newsletter community via the link in the show notes. To learn more about exclusive one-on-one wellness coaching, head over to rndaywellness.com. As always, remember to give yourself grace.